The internet has decided that the game closing out the Game Awards is already a failure. The game is called Highguard, and I think it's fair to say that currently it's the most death-flagged game out there. And you can see the comments about the place. It's dead on arrival, it's cooked. And since that controversial reveal ending the Game Awards, it's basically been radio silence, and for some, this is just another bit of damning evidence of the state of gaming. It's yet another multiplayer shooter heading out to an audience that's already sick of them. You know, it's basically Concord 2. So, to those critics, it basically looked like Highguard blew their entire budget on that final big spot of the Game Awards, flopped hard, then went radio silent and pretty much immediately gave up. That's the common narrative out there, but it's not quite what's actually happened. $1 million. That's actually what sources told Kotaku a 3-minute Game Awards trailer spot costs. Highguard's was 2 minutes and 37 seconds, and usually in the Game Awards, that kind of thing is money well spent. I mean, the 2025 event reached 171 million viewers. That's a hell of a lot, but obviously, it only works if people actually like what they see. And when Jeff Keighley ended the show's reveals, I think audiences had high expectations. And you can really see why. Over the last few years, we closed with Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, which not everyone is hyped for, but, you know, big new Naughty Dog game, right? Also, Monster Hunter Wilds, and a release date for Final Fantasy XVI. That's big stuff, and at this show, we'd already seen Divinity, Mega Man, and Fate of the Old Republic, so I mean, if something was to close out the show, surely it would be something truly special. And then we saw a trailer for another multiplayer shooter, and people started laughing, you know, Z's in chat. And it's one with a familiar fantasy meets guns aesthetic. People are sliding, there's destruction, there's hero powers. It all seems familiar even though it's saying a new breed of shooter, because they say it's a new breed, but we kind of recognize all the constituent parts. And from what we could tell, the largest difference was that you could ride horses and bears, which obviously we've, all been gagging to do in our hero shooter games. So the vibes were bad. Hell, even the game's name sounded like someone just ran Overwatch through a thesaurus. People even thought it was a weird fake game. And since then, the developer, Wildlight Entertainment, have said nothing, despite there being a release coming next week. So what the hell's going on with this mystery? Did they just drop $1 million on that final slot for absolutely nothing? Wildlight did not pay for that final slot. Now, they seem to have paid for a slot, though Jeff Keighley has been known to reduce rates, even down to free, for indie devs. But according to reports from journalists like Imran Khan and Paul Tassi, Keighley and his team gave Highguard the closing position. Here's the quote from Paul Tassi. Showrunner Jeff Keighley just really liked the game and offered it to them. So basically, it was Keighley's editorial choice. He thought it was cool. He wanted to show a game that's coming out rather soon, instead of one that's coming out years and years away, like, I don't know, say, Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. And to his credit, I think we all like a trailer with gameplay rather than purely CG, and it's one that also fit the industry story that Jeff has been trying to tell, of the independent developers basically coming from ex-AAA studios and then being able to go really hard punching above their weight. That's clear from both his introduction and the trailer. So, the intended selling point for Highguard basically comes down to one framing, and it's this: from the makers of Apex Legends and Titanfall. Jeff said that up front. It's 61 devs who kind of just went and made two of the best shooters of the last decade, who are now free from EA's clutches to just make whatever the hell they want. That's the same trick that was used in the first reveal of the show for Fate of the Old Republic, which ended with the return of the original KOTOR director, Casey Hudson. It's just that for Highguard, it didn't really work. That pedigree just didn't give viewers enough confidence in what they were seeing. So now that we're a week from launch, why the hell has it been radio silence, and what's going on with this game? First, there's the expectation, basically, that it's either been delayed for a rework or that they've just given up and are hoping to quietly drop the game somehow. But part of the silence is actually simple logistics. You see, if you're a studio doing a marketing campaign for a multiplayer game, I think it's fair to say that 2025's last few weeks basically would have been the worst time in years, because you're fighting Arc Raiders, Battlefield, and COD. And of course, you can't launch your game the week before Christmas because the holidays would just kill the momentum, which basically means the game kind of had to come out in January. Perhaps that makes sense. I mean, Hytale went for a similar strategy, and they've absolutely monopolized a very quiet release schedule. But Highguard isn't Hypixel, it doesn't have the positive vibes, hell, it doesn't even have the neutral vibes people basically are dooming on it already. Obviously, the reveal was meant to go better than it did, and the hostility of people's reaction has firmly got them in negative territory, which basically means they have got to overcome all of that. So, think about it this way. If Wildlight had spent the last few weeks dropping trailers and blog posts for characters, explaining powers and mechanics, then there would have been one overriding reaction: criticism, where, fair or not, every ability would have been contrasted with Overwatch, Apex, or any other shooter. I mean, the original trailer was leaning into familiarity. It was meant to feel like enough of a known quantity to, well, be something you could immediately pick up and play, safe in the knowledge that it's Apex and Titanfall people, which would appear to be the strategically sound play. I mean, for an example, we've seen with Dreamhaven, which is a whole bunch of ex-Blizzard people, that, yeah, you can be famous devs with big pedigree, but if you step outside your known genre, people just, may not give a shit. Of course, the problem here, though, is that no one was willing to extend them grace after the reveal. Everyone's pretty much already decided that it failed. I mean, come on, we can just tap the Concord sign. So that means a normal marketing wave of blog posts and trailers wouldn't just have been a Sisyphean task. It would have been a bit like Sisyphus pushing the boulder, just that the boulder is actually water, and it's just going to go down the hill, right? There's nothing he can do. I think it would have been completely pointless, and I think they probably know that as well, especially because there are a group of developers who have actually solved that problem before, and all signs point to them doing the same trick again. Let me explain. Per leaks to Insider Gaming's Tom Henderson, there's already been a marketing event for Highguard. Probably not on the same scale as, say, the Battlefield event of 2025, but it allegedly did happen. You just haven't seen it yet. And that's because everyone involved is under embargo. And that's because Highguard can't get a mulligan on their reveal, but the plan is to make sure that the next time you see it, it is in your hands, or at least that it could be, and that you can see a bunch of streamers and press. Basically, it's the same people who did the Apex Legends Shadow Drop, and I think you could argue that maybe the Game Awards was a bit of a blunder. Maybe this would have went better if it was a pure Shadow Drop. It's hard to say, but with the Game Awards not going well, it seems that a big day one push is basically the next best option for them. As much as the reaction has been hostile, we have seen new multiplayer games make it, even relatively new IP. Arc Raiders and Marvel Rivals both broke through last year and have got stable audiences. The Finals sort of did that in 2023. Now, obviously not every game makes it. There's Spectre Divide and Fragpunk. Those are ones last year, which again were brand new IPs from indie teams with a lot of experience, but they simply didn't last. All of them, though, were built on the same principle. That principle was that making a good game is only part of the conversation, and that the rest is marketing. And that is a truly high mountain to climb. Let me explain here. So there's a recent study from a marketing firm called Gamesight, and it showed that players need to see, get this, 141 hours worth of coverage before they'll buy a premium game. I've got to be honest with you, that seems absolutely mad to me. I don't think that's ever fit me buying a game before, though I can see the number making sense if we're talking not just about watch time. It could just be seeing trailers, being reminded of them, seeing reveals, conversations, even memes, community stuff. Now, free-to-play games have actually got a lower barrier, but according to them, that's only down to an average of 111 hours, and the total conversion rate is often only 2.07% of the total addressed market. Obviously, for premium games, it's even lower. And that means that to break through to you, the player, devs have got to spend millions trying to get into your head. But that won't be enough for a multiplayer game like Highguard, the type of game that really does need a network effect to actually take off. I mean, playing the multiplayer game only makes sense if lots of other people are doing it, and eventually you all get a ball rolling and you feel like you're part of the new thing. So, the plan now appears to be, for this game anyway, a large barrage of information just before launch, right when there are as few barriers to entry as is humanly possible, so they can capture as many people as possible. Essentially, they're doing a very different rollout to the one that we saw with Concord. Maybe they're thinking that with Concord, all of the marketing that was pretending that Concord was already a massive super hype franchise, probably just made them look like they thought they were too big to fail. which obviously will have turned audiences against them. So, if I was placing my bets, I think that is what this studio is trying to avoid. If the game's amazing, things could change, and right now the only people who kinda know are under embargo. Now, there is a vibe out there from some commentators that Highguard almost deserves to fail just for daring to exist. I don't think that's the right way to treat potential new games. Though some of the frustration is understandable. It's the idea that it's taking resources away, developers, from other potential games whilst giving people what? Just another free-to-play shooter. I'm sure a lot of people would rather these people worked on something else. I do get that. And look, Highguard could be a total shit show, or it could be the next game from the people who made Apex Legends and Titanfall. It could be an incredible game that looks a little bit bland before you play it. That's equally possible. Who knows, maybe the Expedition 33 of multiplayer shooters. Because fundamentally, this is the situation that we're actually in. This is not a AAA developer trying to pivot towards a multiplayer game because they are chasing that big money high, which is essentially what Sony were doing with Concord. What this is an indie studio made up of expert multiplayer game developers who are trying to build something that they want to play. I kinda doubt it was either make this or a single-player narrative RPG. No, these people make shooters, so of course they're going to go and try to make a shooter. And if they succeed, well, they're in a tradition with Arc Raiders. And if they fail, well, that's just the audience rejecting this specific game. One indie studio failing won't convince the industry to stop trying to make these games, and I'm sure we'll be back here in a few months with the next game, with another developer desperately trying to reach the small part of the audience that may actually care about the thing that they are making. But I suppose I could say this. In a world where the likes of Arc Raiders are kicking off and offering major competition to some of the big AAA incumbents, well, you know what? Actually, that's good. I think that's the likes of Call of Duty being disrupted, and the more that they are disrupted, well, the more vibrant the FPS space could actually be. So you know what? I do actually hope that they succeed. If there's another game from an independent studio, one where more of the money earned can actually go back into development and not some, nightmare hellscape corporate structure, well, you know what? I think that's a good thing. Yes, I understand the eye rolls, but I don't think we should be overly dooming when ultimately it's a bunch of ex-AAAs trying to disrupt the AAA market, something that I think most of us are already fairly frustrated with. So let's just see how it goes. No matter what, I'll give you an update when it happens, but until then, I think you should watch this next because, well, no matter what games you're playing, I really hope you're able to build a good PC when you could. Because my god, it's gonna get really expensive and worse.